Hi, welcome to my project on best practice research. This will be all about how to provide interventions and specific targeted learning goals on fluency as well as assessments and progress monitoring. Fluency, best practices, strategies, interventions, and assessments. The project will be based on this. I wanted to start with a quote. Automaticity in word recognition opens doors to acquiring depth of meaning from text. When automaticity exists, attention to decoding is minimal and the reader has the ability to assign very little attention to deciphering words and much greater attention to comprehension. For my focal student, I will be working on fluency practice. Based on his RASKids fluency checkouts and NUIA results, this is an area of concern for my focal student. Currently, he receives instruction at a grade level 2, although he is in 3rd grade. Ultimately, there are many targeted interventions and strategies that we could try to help improve his fluency. Currently, the strategies that are being used are small group direct instruction with visual reminders and goal setting for improving reading stamina. Also, during this instructional time, the student has a points chart where he receives points for participation and engagement in activities. The student also reads along while the teacher reads the passage, which helps improve with his fluency. Also, during instruction and during interventions, the student has reading inventories, which allows the teacher to observe and assess students' progress. In terms of differentiating fluency practice in the classroom, there are several ideas that we can approach with this student. One of the approaches would be a multimodality approach, which will help with spelling and decoding in his word work. This is a very important skill to help with in terms of increasing fluency and repeated readings. One of the ways that you can assess this is through observation, especially in small groups in guided instruction. The second approach that we can use or think about is how fluency is based on many oral language skills, phonemic awareness, familiarity with letter forms, and decoding skills. This will be extremely important to think about as the student begins repeated readings as a strategy that will be introduced. Lastly, another way that we can think about what the student is motivated to learn and what his interests are is through a preliminary interview of the student's interest and creating a student profile. This is a nice visual about instructional strategies to use in the classroom. I think it's really important to think about how we interact with students surrounding these strategies to help improve fluency. For example, building talk for thinking, making sure that there's time to allow students to talk to each other about what they're reading. Also, listening and responding, making sure that that student is repeating what the teacher has said and repeating what the teacher is reading. Another important thing to consider is vocabulary and concepts, making sure that there's prior knowledge that the student is aware of, and then teaching those skills and those words to the student to ensure that they are understanding what they're reading. Another great strategy is think, pair, share, in which the students can really talk to each other and retell what they have read. New strategies to try in the classroom involve repeated reading, which is specifically asking the student to reread a passage 3 to 6 times. Another technique that would be really helpful is by using an app called VoiceThread, and between each read, a teacher or another proficient peer reviews the recording of the student and provides feedback to let the student know of any errors. Reader's theater is also a great strategy for increasing student fluency, especially in small group instruction. Repeated opportunities to read aloud the same words in similar patterns of words in connected text. For example, having a word list or having a small phrases that the student repeats will be an important way to increase fluency. And lastly, using books such as graphic novels that are of high interest will also increase the student's fluency. Other specific strategies include really thinking about meaningful tasks that are based on the student's interest, and this will be providing a high level of motivation for the student. Gregory and others extremely encourage rewriting the standards in student-friendly action goals, and when we do this, we can really think about providing the students with goals that are specific to what their targeted instruction is, and then helping them to see how they can meet those goals. Other important strategies that we can try are things such as read like you've always known it, where you teach a student to reread words that are challenging, attack the word, smooth it out, and reread the sentence, and also make the bumpy smooth, where they go back, try again, and scoop a few words together. Additionally, Servallo also encourages that we use things like warm-up phrases, where students read a group of words that are pretty usually and commonly found in books, and really sort of practice reading those words before reading their passage. Some ways that we can really support differentiation include creating learning centers and literature circles and tiered assignments that are really based on this student's targeted instruction area, which is fluency. More strategies to try. Another thing to think about is to make sure that we match complexity of task to the student's current level, making sure that we are selecting passages and books and assignments that are appropriate for the student and their level. Another important strategy is to provide students with self-evaluations based on those goals that they have created using working with you as a teacher. They can really evaluate the progress that they've made. And of course, we can use iPads and other technology to record, listen, and reflect, or VoiceThread to help students practice their fluency. This is also motivating for the student because they can see their progress, hear their progress, and also they enjoy using technology. As well as Reader's Theater is really a great thing because it's offering a lot of collaborative opportunities for students and at the same time practicing fluency. Lastly, a great way for students to practice fluency is to create specific passages and books that students will read at home with parent support. Something to think about in terms of VoiceThread and recording. This allows students to connect these visual cues and audio recordings, and also allow teachers to hear how the student is making progress. It's also important to think about how modeling and repeated reading has yielded higher reading rates. And it's also extremely important to think about how we need to provide specific feedback that is specific and personalized to our students. We also need to improve motivation and engagement by captivating our struggling readers with books that they're interested in. As far as application of assessments and using progress monitoring, I think it's also very important to think about how students really need to use repeated readings and try to catch the teacher in their fluency and prosody as they're reading. It's important to think about tutoring and having small intensive group instruction to increase that fluency development. Reading inventories is a great way to evaluate students' progress, and using the audio recordings is also a really excellent way for teachers to understand some areas of concern and their areas of growth. We can also use things such as a fluency progress chart, reading prosody assessment, and self-evaluations to help both the student buy in and keep track of their own data, as well as create motivation to beat their goal. And again, it's really important that the student understands the feedback about their specific learning goals and how and why they can meet these goals. This is a list of references that I have used, and references continued. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I appreciate it, and thank you for considering some of these ideas.